Hey guys, welcome to the Week 3 update. Let's do it. Last week's game of the week was Dan versus Mark. Dan was able to get the win 110-83 thanks to some good performances by Le'Veon Bell and Randall Cobb, who exploded for 3 touchdowns on Monday night. Mark was again disappointed by Jeremy Hill and Marshawn Lynch, who he probably has doubts about going forward. Your high score this week was Dan Drury, formerly of the Low Score Club, scoring 142 points this week. Your low score is Al, who hasn't been seen or heard from in months. We're not even sure if he's still alive. Hello? The only way to know if he's dead or not is to see if he watches this video and replies to it in the forums. I'm going to continue to harp on the Premium Division, who was able to actually win the game of the week, but still has 3 teams with no wins. On the other hand, the Light Division still has 3 teams looking for their first loss. I wanted to remind everyone of the IR change this year because I've gotten some questions about it. The change this year is that there's no protected IR, so you can't drop somebody and contact me and let me know that they're actually on your IR, but ESPN won't let you keep them there. You just have to follow ESPN's rules this year. If they say you have to take someone off IR, then you just have to take them off IR. However, there is no fee for moving someone on and off IR. Fresh off of Craig's big trade this week, he was anxious to get Duke Johnson into his starting lineup. As predicted by myself, he was a little too anxious and Duke Johnson did nothing. He should have started Carlos Williams, and that's this week's questionable call. That brings us to the game of the week. Game of the week. Game of the week. Game of the week. This week's game of the week is the Battle of the Dans. And as your commissioner, I do decree that the loser of this game shall henceforth be known as Loser Dan. Mostly because I'm sick of saying Dan H or Dan D. ESPN has this game spread only 0.1 points. I've never seen a spread so close as this one is. Can Joseph Randle and Greg Olsen have huge performances again? Can Randall Cobb and Le'Veon Bell have huge performances again? Will Peyton Manning die on the field? These are all questions we'll find answers to in this week's Game of the Week. Let's get to that fantasy highlight wheel. This week was the week of the explosion. This week, like a 40-year-old virgin having sex for the first time, some fantasy players exploded everywhere. Joseph Randle scored 3 touchdowns, scoring fantasy owners 29 points. Greg Olsen went off for 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 30 points. Aaron Rodgers, who I'm sure we all saw Monday night, scored 5 touchdowns, 48 points. AJ Green having himself a day with 227 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, scoring his fantasy owners 44 points. And we have Devontae Freeman, 141 yards, 3 touchdowns, 40 points. The Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, with 383 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 41 points for fantasy owners. Of course, Steve Smith Sr. coming back from the dead with 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 38 points. Julio Jones continuing to please with 164 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 35 fantasy points. Aaron Rodgers' favorite target, Randall Cobb, with 91 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 32 points. There were so many fantasy explosions this week I couldn't even list them all, but some honorable mentions would be Larry Fitzgerald, LeGarrette Blount, Keenan Allen, and CJ2K. Will your player have an explosion next week? We'll find out. I'll see you guys next week.